Good morning. Do you believe that? No power of hell, no scheme of man will ever pluck me from his hand. Here in the power of Christ, I'll stand. We sing that song because it's very real in our lives today, is it not? We are all facing various battles, and we are reminded repeatedly, as was read by Reuben and as we sang, we do not war against flesh and blood. We do not war against a physical adversary. We war against Satan. We war against what can be an overwhelming flood of wickedness that spews from the dragon's mouth, as we see in the book of Revelation, chapter 12. And it does seem overwhelming, doesn't it, at times? Let's be real. Sometimes it can be scary. Sometimes it can be sad. Sometimes it can rattle our faith to its core. Have you faced that? I have. I see heads shaking. But the title of the sermon this morning is The Same Power. We're going to be talking about the power of God. I'm glad you're here. We serve an awesome God. And I hope that if you are struggling in your faith, that you'll be encouraged today. I hope that if you are not right with Jesus, your invitation is open now. If you need to be right with Jesus, make that right today. If you need to be baptized in the name of Jesus Christ, make that right today. We can stop everything for that. That's the most important thing. Last week, as in every church service, I want to remind us, as I know other leaders do as well, that every part of the worship service is important. Every part of the worship service, we learn something and we are taught. Were you not taught by the songs today? We're taught by the preaching. We're taught by the Lord's Supper talk. Max last Sunday taught me. As we're thinking about Jesus, last week, Jesus told Peter, Max said, Jesus told Peter, I can call 12 legions of angels, 72,000 angels to save me and to deliver me. And so I was thinking about that. And you ever been listening to a sermon or a talk and your mind goes off in a direction as they get you thinking? There's nothing wrong with that necessarily because they get you thinking about other Bible passages, helping you to ponder and apply it in your own life. I got to thinking about those 12 legions of angels. Psalm 78 and verse 49, the Bible says, God let loose on them his burning anger, wrath, indignation, and distress, a company of destroying angels. That's kind of scary. If God unleashed a company of destroying angels, what do you think would happen? And so I got thinking about that. And I got to thinking about, well, I know what one angel did in the Bible. Maybe you're not familiar with the account, but just if you're taking notes, 2 Kings 19 and verse 35, 2 Kings 19 and verse 35 tells us that one angel killed 185,000 Assyrian soldiers in one night. How many could Jesus call? Now, if one angel kills 100, I started doing this crazy math, which, 185,000 times 72,000, whew. When God unleashes his company of destroying angels, you cannot flee from the wrath of God. And we would not want to stand under that judgment. You cannot stand under that judgment. One angel. I want you to turn with me to Revelation 20. Sometimes in movies, whether it's Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, and they have these two great wizards, these two great powers, and they're fighting each other at the end of the movie. And I get to thinking about that and start thinking about the book of Revelation. And here is this dragon, this Satan, this horrible creature that deceives the whole world. And you read Revelation 12 of how scary and awful and powerful the devil is, the dragon is, the Satan is. And I'm expecting to have this great epic battle between these two forces, between Jesus and Satan, and they're shooting things at each other, like you watch Star Wars, Yoda, and anyway, sorry. But all these are outdated references, but I'm old as dirt, so kids. I read Revelation 20. What's going to happen to devil? What's going to happen to Satan? Revelation 20. I saw, verse 1, I saw an angel coming down. Did you see Jesus or an angel? I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having come down from heaven, holding in his hand the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain, and he seized the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years, and threw him into the pit, and shut it, and sealed it over him so that he might not deceive the nations any longer until the 1,000 years were completed. So what does all that mean? I'm getting into what it means. I'm saying is, aren't you impressed that one angel bound Satan? You should be impressed with that. One angel killed 185,000, but that's not near as oppressive as grabbing Satan by the collar and throwing him into the pit. There's no epic battle. He just yanks him and throws him in there. And I say that because I know if you're anything like me, which I'm pretty sure we're all swimming in the same sauce, like I like to say, do you not get overwhelmed by the power of the devil? And what sometimes is being done in our world and in our families and in our nation and sometimes in churches? How can we fight against such evil? How can we stand and oppose such overwhelming wickedness? And yet what we see in Revelation 20 is one angel grabbed the devil and threw him in the pit. That's the God we serve. I need to be reminded of that, my friends, and I'm pretty sure you need to be reminded of that too. Angels are powerful beings that do God's will. And don't forget Hebrews 1 and verse 14, that these angels are ministering spirits sent forth to minister to you and me. The same angels that killed 185,000, the same angels that threw the devil into the pit, the same angels that did all those amazing, marvelous things are ministering to God's people today. We'll say, well, Aaron, how are they doing that? Well, I don't know. I'm just thankful they're doing it. Aren't you thankful for that? One angel. So then I think about, and this is my outline for where my brain went during the Lord's Supper last week. If one angel did all that, how powerful is the Lord who created that angel? How powerful is your God to create a being that powerful? How powerful is your God? Because I guarantee in some way you're struggling with that. Whether it's the things that we are facing temptation-wise. Are you facing a temptation that just seems absolutely overwhelming? Are you facing fear, anxiety in your life that is absolutely overwhelming? Are you facing grief? That sometimes you don't know how you can pick your head back up again. Betrayal. I know you are, because we're all human and we're going through the same things. But what God do you serve? The fear of where our country may be going and is going. What God do we serve? The same angel, the one angel, I should say the same power that created that angel. I want you to look with me in Colossians Chapter 1. Wesley read for us in Colossians Chapter 1, just before this section that I'm going to read to you in Colossians Chapter 1. In our preparation for each other as Christians, yes, there are times when we need to prepare each other, to answer biblical questions and to answer denominational error. There are times we need to train each other and prepare that, but we need to prepare each other for battle. Spiritual warfare that's hitting us every day right here in our brains and in our hearts. Amen? And that's what we're trying to do here today. Colossians Chapter 1, we serve a mighty God. That mighty angel was created by a mighty Jesus. Colossians Chapter 1, verse 15, He, Jesus, is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by Him all things were created. How many things? In heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through Him and for Him. That includes angels. They were created through Him and for Him. Verse 17, and He is before all things, and in Him all things hold together. Sometimes we, maybe as moms and dads or as church leaders or you in your business, you think, I'm holding the world together. No, you ain't. Newsflash, if I go away today, the world's going to keep spinning. Jesus is the one who holds it all together. In Him, all things hold together. As they praise Jesus in heaven, by your will, these things exist and were created. By your will, these things exist. When He stops willing it, it won't exist. There are things I'd like to will to not to exist. Don't you wish sometimes maybe we have that power? When Jesus stops willing it, it will stop existing. There's just no way to comprehend that kind of power. That powerful angel was created by a powerful Jesus. I want you to turn with me to Luke chapter 11. Maybe it's a marriage that maybe you think is beyond repair, but what God do we serve? It may be a broken heart that you think can never be repaired, but what God do we serve? Luke chapter 11. Jesus demonstrated His power over Satan through His holy life, through the casting out of demons. He demonstrated at the Garden of Gethsemane when His will and everything in His being says, I don't want to go through the cross. But He submitted to the Father's will. He defeated the devil. And He defeated him mightily at the cross and at the empty tomb. I want you to look at Luke chapter 11. As the people in Jesus' day, the Jewish leadership was accusing Him of casting out demons by the power of the devil, by the power of Beelzebul, okay? Verse 20, he says, well, before that he says that's ridiculous because a kingdom divided against itself will not stand. Verse 20, but if it is by the finger of God that I cast out demons, then the kingdom of God has come upon you. When a strong man, and here I believe he's talking about the devil, fully armed, guards his own palace, his goods are safe. But when one stronger than he, that's Jesus, is Jesus stronger than the devil? But when one stronger than he attacks him and overcomes him, he takes away his armor in which he trusted, and divides his spoil. That armor there, we just sang a song where we use the word panoply. Ryan, right? Panoply of God. Like, what is that, Greek monopoly? What does that word mean? Did you use that yesterday when you were making dinner? What's that mean? That word panoply. It's the whole armor, and that's the word here. The devil's panoply, whole armor, was taken away by Jesus. Now we get upset and we get overwhelmed thinking the devil is so strong and so powerful, but what happened to all his armor? It's stripped away in Jesus. He took it away and he divided the spoil, and I believe you and I are the spoil. He brought us out of the clutches of the devil. We continue. Jesus used his own armor. And I want you to pay attention to these next few verses. Really pay attention, because when we read in Ephesians here in a moment about our armor that we wear, it's the same armor that Jesus wore. Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 15. Isaiah 11 and verse 15. These are all in the notes, and I'll make them available on the Dowling Rotors page, the Facebook page. And if you want a printed copy, please see me. Jesus had his own armor when he took on Satan. In Isaiah 11 and verse 15, looking forward to Ruben's lesson tonight on Isaiah and the Messiah. Isaiah 11 verse 15, righteousness shall be the belt of his waist, and faithfulness the belt of his loins. Keep these things in mind. Isaiah 49 and verse 2. Isaiah 49. He had righteousness as a belt. He had faithfulness as a belt. When he took on the devil, he wore armor. When we say put on the armor of the Lord, it is truly his armor, because he wore it when he defeated Satan. Isaiah 49 and verse 2. Jesus speaking 700 years before he came to this earth, speaking in the first person in Isaiah 49, says, he made my mouth like a what? Like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand he hid me. He made me a polished arrow. In his quiver he hid me away. There is the sword coming out of the Messiah's mouth. There's righteousness as his belt. Isaiah 59 and verse 17. Isaiah 59 and verse 17. He put on righteousness as a breastplate and a helmet of salvation on his head. He put on garments of vengeance for clothing and wrapped himself in zeal as a cloak. We see righteousness on his belt, the sword coming out of his mouth, righteousness as a breastplate, a helmet of salvation. Jesus wore armor. And when he took on the devil, if you're taking notes, Colossians Chapter 2, we won't read this for today. Colossians 2 verses 13 through 15. He defeated Jesus. He defeated Satan at the cross. He made a public spectacle of him, triumphing over him at the cross. Now again, how powerful is the God you serve? I just don't think I can ever overcome this temptation. How powerful is the God you serve? I just don't think I can ever forgive that. How powerful is the God we serve? I just don't think I can ever control my mouth. Anybody ever struggle with that? I know you all do, because James 3 says you do. I don't think I can ever control this flapping muscle. How powerful is the God we serve? He conquered the devil, and he wore his armor when he did it, and he is offering us to wear that armor as well. So we continue with the third and final point. One of the things I want to remind you of, because I need to remind myself of it, you remember that powerful angel we talked about, the one angel that killed 185,000, the one angel that bound Satan? Think of this verse. It's from Psalm 37, Psalm 34, and verse 7. Remember that the angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him. Where's the angel of the Lord camping? According to God's promise. Turn with me to Ephesians Chapter 6. We need this. I tell you, we need this more than we know. We need this encouragement. Ephesians Chapter 6. I want to go back through this and read it one more time. And Ruben read it for us so well, but I'd like to go back. It's good to look at it again. The church at Ephesus was going through quite a fight. It was a hard place to live as a Christian. They went through a lot of persecution. There was a lot of adversaries there, but yet the gospel kept spreading, and people kept becoming Christians. Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 10, finally be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Now, whose strength? You guys with me? Finally be strong in the... Have you tried to be strong in yourself? How did that work out? Be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Remember everything we just said. Put on the whole armor of God. What we just read about, that you will be able to possibly sort of stand. That's sometimes how it comes through my filter. Because as I'm dealing with fear or anxiety or whatever it is, I forget. I put my extra words in there. That you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God. He said it again. Why do you think he said it again? Just like moms and dads, you got to keep repeating things, don't you? That you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Look at times he says stand. Stand and fight. Wear the armor. With God you can do this. Stand therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth. Put on the breastplate of righteousness. Remember Isaiah, this is Jesus' armor. And as shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace, in all circumstances, take up the shield of faith, which you can extinguish how many flaming darts of the evil one? How many? Do you believe that? Well, God's promised it. It's true, whether or not you believe it. But I want you to believe it. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is God's word, praying at all times in the Spirit with all prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert with all perseverance, making supplication for all the saints, and also for me, that words may be given to me in the opening of my mouth boldly to proclaim the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador of chains, that I may declare it boldly as I ought to speak. I want to say this about Paul. Personally, he had troubles with fear. He told them, the Corinthians, I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. Paul had to be told by Jesus multiple times, don't fear. What's Paul need prayers for? Boldness. He says it twice. Did Paul struggle with it? He had his own struggles, didn't he? And so we think about this for ourselves and how important this is. I want you to look at 1 John 4. 1 John 4 and verse 4. There's this passage and one more, then we'll close our lesson. By the way, I'm not going to read this passage, but if you're reading Revelation 12 and you think about how overwhelming and powerful that devil is, just read Revelation 12. Don't try to understand it, except just read it and watch how many times the devil loses in that chapter. If you haven't done that, just read the chapter and see how many times the devil loses in Revelation 12. He keeps getting his behind kicked every time. I need that reminder. 1 John 4 and verse 4. This same power. Little children, you are from God and have overcome them, for he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. Amen. One final verse. Romans 16 and verse 20. I was talking with the college-age students this morning about the promises of God. That as we are preparing ourselves for spiritual warfare, we need to put in our hearts the promises of God, which are true and are never broken. And the promise of God is that God will crush the devil under your feet. Isn't that awesome to think about? Romans 16 and verse 20. Think about these things. Again, the invitation is for all. If you need to make your life right with Jesus, please come forward while we stand and while we sing.